the party guitar player. You know who you are. I've seen you. You go to a party, a friend's house, and there in the corner of the room is a guitar. So you see that guitar, and you're trying not to stare at it, but the whole game plan in your head is, I'm playing that guitar. That's what's happening next. So you find out whoever the owner is of this guitar, which is what you should do. Never go up and just pick up a guitar. That's not yours. Don't ever do that. That's really, really bad. So you find the owner of said guitar, and you say, "Oh, yeah, you got a guitar? Oh, that's cool. What is that, a Yamaha? Oh, yeah, all right." And they're like, "Oh, so you play?" You're totally setting them up for them to ask you that. And like, yeah, I play a little. Yeah. And and they say, "Well, would you like to? You feel free to play the guitar. That's fine if you want to play it." And somewhat reluctantly, you try to sound at least. I don't know. I might play it. Sure, why not? Yeah, okay. Totally celebrating in your head. Yes. Okay. So now, what do you do that you have this guitar in your hands? Well, there are a couple things you need to do, because if you're that guy or that girl, usually you don't have a great reputation. Usually you're the one that picks up the guitar and you play far too long and you play the same thing over and over again, and it just gets boring. And you know this because nobody's listening to you. That's hint number one. When you're playing guitar and you're playing it far too long, at first people are going to listen and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's cool, he plays guitar," or "She plays guitar." But when they stop being interested, put the guitar down. But here's some things that you can do to maybe hold their interest a little more. That is, if this is not for the professionals who go out and play private parties or whatever. This is the party guitar player, remember? So a couple of tips for you party guitar guys and gals. A couple things you need to keep in mind when picking up this instrument. Don't sit and play this all the time. I don't know what that was. It's chords, 1, 4, 5 with a 6 thrown in it, and you're just doing this all the time. Okay, first thing you need to do is relax and use dynamics and rhythmic articulation in your playing. Those two things, dynamics, rhythmic articulation. With dynamics, you're playing with volume. You don't want to play at the same volume all the time. You don't speak at the same volume all the time. I certainly hope not, because that would be painful to listen to. Sorry if you do. So you want to take that same kind of chord progression, and just use different volumes. And you can do this by muting and unmuting. So a little tip that helps me with dynamics, other than just muting and strumming softer and strumming harder, I like, and this is probably really bad if a manicurist saw me doing this, but I like to use a little bit of my finger right here. I know lots of guitar players that do this, but when I'm strumming, I like to use this index finger a little bit to control it. Sometimes I'll use some, when I'm strumming big and full, I'm not really using it, but if I'm trying to control things, it just helps. You get a little bit of a different tone because you're using both the finger and the pick when you strum, and a little bit of the nail. So as a result, I have a nice little callus right there, and the nail doesn't grow exactly right, but I'm not looking to be pretty. I'm looking to play guitar. So whether or not your manicurist, if you have one, tells you that's a bad habit, ignore it. It doesn't matter. Sorry if you're a manicurist. So that's one thing that helps me out with the dynamics. Just keeping things nice and relaxed and easy. You don't want to overwhelm people's ears with that gets old really fast. So let's take that same rhythm and work on articulating it a little bit, giving it some definition. Because again, like you speak, You don't speak in really fast run-on sentences. Sometimes you'll speed up a word a little bit, and sometimes you'll slow down to emphasize a point. So it's that same kind of an idea when you're playing. Think of when you're speaking, you're using commas and you're using periods. You're using semicolons, you're using colons, maybe not colons, but you want to play your guitar that way with a series of, you're playing statements, musical statements, series of commas and periods. Alright, so if we take that kind of, that driving kind of a thing, let's change it up a little bit and go. That's a lot more interesting than, right? So I'm using dynamics there to kind of mute the strings a little bit. Again, using a little bit of the finger to keep things kind of brushy and quiet sounding on the string. And then I take the palm away and I use more of the pick to get that volume change, and I kind of change it to a faster little da-da-da kind of a thing. Also, what I'm doing is I use split strumming a lot. Split strumming, I don't know if that's technically the technical term or not, but I'm splitting up the pick when I strum into regions of the strings. I'll go between the low strings and then the high strings. So by doing that, by splitting that up instead of just playing all the strings at once, split it up a little bit. Maybe instead of two sections, the low 3 and the high 3, maybe do the low 2 and then the medium 2 and the high 2. Split it up into 2, so you have kind of a low, medium, high. And you can use whatever kind of dynamic or rhythmic pattern that you want. The important thing is that you throw in some kind of an accent in there somewhere, or a series of accents, and maybe let some things breathe when you strum. You're trying to emphasize things. You're trying to create an atmosphere. So those two things, dynamics, rhythmic articulation, split strumming, muting, what else was I going to talk about? Oh yes, chord embellishment. I've talked about chord embellishment before in the context of blues, in a blues workshop lesson I did a while back. You can find it's on the website in the archives, and of course it's here on YouTube somewhere. But chord embellishment is simply taking a chord and doing things like sliding notes around. For example, taking like a D chord and kind of you're almost creating like a rhythm when you're embellishing chords. You're pretty much using tones, notes that are around this chord. Sometimes you can use chord tones. These are simply the notes that make up the chord. So you can just play just a regular old chord and just kind of highlight some of the notes that are in there, but you can take some other notes that are outside of that particular chord structure. So that makes a chord a lot more interesting, just by playing around with some notes in and around that chord and just embellishing them by putting them out front, accenting them, things like that. So hopefully those things will help you be a better party guitar player. So always practice. Don't practice at the party. For the sake of everybody around you. Practice before you go. Hey, but have fun. I really hope that you find some of these tips helpful. I know this is really quick and a lot of things going over really fast, but I hope it helps you out so you can have fun playing out there with your friends. All right, see you later.